Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Naked Wealth podcast. Really excited today. I have Mia Andreoli on today. Mia is a Boston-based photographer and a creator. She captures personality in portraits and helps people create branding content. She's very client-centric. She's energetic and vibrant, and she really does leave you feeling refreshed and inspired after working with her. And I think you'll feel refreshed and inspired after our conversation today. So Mia, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, and Happy New Year.
You too. So I know you do branding photography. How did you get into photography? It would kind of be my part one question. And part two, how did you niche down into branding?
So I got into photography through my family. My grandparents always had cameras on them when I was little. My dad always had a camera or video camera, as did my mom. My uncle was sort of like our designated photographer for the family. And I just always had a camera around me. And I remember when my mom bought me my first camera, and it was just a really empowering piece of equipment and vessel to express myself. I was such a shy kid. So being able to use that vessel to, see the world in a way that just made sense to me artistically and visually was really cool. And then in high school, I took photography classes. In college. And when I moved to New York City in 2003 to be a makeup artist, being on set, I got to meet so many incredible photographers, lighting assistants, lighting designers. And funny enough, I found myself more enamored with what they were doing versus what I should have been doing, painting faces. So I was just constantly asking, the lighting guys and camera people just, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And I just really fell in love with that whole concept of being on set, creating this incredible atmosphere for whether it was somebody who was a model, somebody who was an everyday person, a business. And it just really piqued my interest. And so years later, again, just always had a camera. I would actually sold some work back in the day when I lived in New York, which was really empowering. And then I kind of just put my camera down for a few years. I just had a lot of other stuff going on. And then when the pandemic hit a few years ago, I got furloughed from my job. And I just had this moment of what did I used to do in my previous life that really lit me up and gave me, a great sense of joy. And it was absolutely photography. And it was this very ding ding moment. And I talked to my husband. I said, I think I'm going to buy a new camera. And I just started shooting. And it was for, friends of friends, family portraits, first birthdays. And then a really good friend of mine, she and her business partner, they're interior designers. They had me just start taking pictures of them, sort of behind the scenes when they're, unpacking things, moving things, setting up homes, and really just capturing them in a very authentic way that was beautiful and raw and, messy ponytails and unloading boxes and stuff. And it just became this sort of instant niche where I was able to tell this story, obviously without words, but through visuals of, what these women, these super driven women were doing. And then all of a sudden, just opportunities started to pop up for me.
Wow. All right. I know I had specific things I was going to ask you, but now I have some other things. So I'm going to just go for it. All right, first of all, tell me about your first camera because you intrigued me with that. Was it like a spit out Kodak, or was it like a film, or was it little, or was it big?
It was just
remember it?
It was a DSLR. And it was probably just a Canon Rebel, it was a Minolta. And it was just film. And I had it for many years. And I shot so many rolls on that camera. And it's funny because I came across a box in my closet and I found it. It's still in there. And I was thinking about maybe just buying another version of it. But yeah, it really allowed me, again, just to fire up some film and just go see the world.
Wait, it was digital or it was film?
No, it was film. This is dating me, Jennifer.
So no, I was wait, but isn't that relatable though? Because I bet we all remember going to the drugstore and grabbing our pictures from our camera and be like, that's a picture of the ceiling. That's a picture of the left side with someone's head.
That one's black. That one's black. Yeah, there's always one good picture. But I mean, talk about a practice of patience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very, very different time. But yeah, it was such a good camera. And yeah, it just really piqued my interest. And I'm so grateful that my parents bought that for me.
Yeah, that's a cool story. And then you were furloughed in 2020. So a lot of times, things happen, right? And you're like, oh, this was unexpected and it doesn't feel good. And, how was that process for you of going from, you kind of talked about it a little there. Like, I love just you made lemonade out of the lemons that life gave to you. And I kind of want to dig into that for a minute because I think even right now with post-pandemic, but nonetheless, things are different and, things change all the time. And we might be thrown a curveball, a medical curveball or a family change. I mean, divorce, things happen. I was talking to someone recently who's had a drastic alteration in their life. And we were kind of talking about, well, how can you turn this and make this an opportunity? So yeah, was that easy for you to come natural or is it something you kind of had to work at?
I mean, just to your point that, things happen. That's life, right? You can have all the plans in the world and the universe can just say, dropping this bomb on you and you just have to figure it out. And it's interesting. I just got back from seeing my parents in Florida and I think updating them on my business and just, being really grateful that I've had their support my whole life as an artist. I think that lessons they've taught me along the way, it made me more prepared for when I did get furloughed and to be able to create what I have now. So yeah, of course I was like totally having like Mariah Carey meltdowns, like, what am I doing? But I think that, my neighbors next door, my neighbors on the other side, I think a lot of people were having those moments, whether it was having to work from home and, all your kids are in the house now and you don't have childcare. And, I think everybody has their pandemic story. So for me, it was difficult, but I also realized that I was given this gift of time and a time to slow down and to really assess what I was missing in my life. And again, it immediately was art in my camera or a new camera. And I just went, I got it. And I just was off and running. And I think that is part of my personality where I'm a self-starter and I just want to see what I can do. And I have to say, I'm really proud of myself. And I think it's, years forward that I'm able to look back now and say, holy shit, I'm so proud of myself. So yeah, it was not easy, Jennifer, at all. But I mean,
you should be proud of yourself because I had the opportunity to work with you on my photos. So if anyone checks out my website, they'll see a lot of your work there. And I think what resonated with me is exactly kind of what you just said, that your true love, your true passion for art, and that really carried, I mean, it was very obvious to me that you really love what you do and that you put your heart into it. And you really have an innate ability to, at least for me, understanding what I was looking for, really developing the story piece, like you said, with those initial jobs you were doing with the messy ponytails and really capturing the essence of, what somebody's trying to convey without words. And I thought that, was exactly what you do really well. And so I think it's a very authentic role and job, but really life path for you. And I experienced the, not just you saying it, but actually experienced it. So.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that that's how we're connected. I worked with a branding coach a couple years ago, and we were talking about my business and my mission and pillars of my business. And probably I think all pillars should be equal, but this particular one, it feels a little more robust, and it's authenticity. And I find that I'm living my most authentic life currently because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I have taken all of my previous life experiences and previous careers, and I'm basically melding them into this one to stay gold to my business. And through that, I'm able to help pull that out of like with you and with other clients. And I think it's something that people keep coming back to me for, is they want to be seen and heard in their most authentic way. And I feel so unbelievably grateful that I'm able to share this gift with people. And, it's taken me into my 40s with lots of job losses and traumas and things like that, where now I'm like, this is exactly where these 2 feet are supposed to be. And it's only going up from here. So I feel really grateful.
It feels really good.
Yeah.
And so if someone's listening in their like 20s and you're feeling like you're a misfit in your role, like keep going, right? I think it's
Oh,
finding that
100%.
authentic piece of you and knowing like what is it that moves you. And like you said, oh, I was at this other job, but I wasn't looking at what I was really interested in these other pieces. If that's happening to you, that's a good cue. Like, oh, what is it about that I need to dig into a little more?
Yeah. And I actually just had a conversation with one of my best friends. We moved to New York City at the same time in 2003. We both moved there to do makeup. And I remember a couple years into us living in New York, we were sitting at this cool little bar in the East Village and we were talking about, what projects we were working on. I said, I really want to start like shooting beauty photography. And she's like, wait, you're a makeup artist. Like, why do you want to start doing that? And I said, I'm so interested in it. But at the time, my life didn't align in a way where I was really able to do that and invest in that. And now I called her recently. I said, I've been doing these really awesome beauty shoots. And it reminded me of our conversation from 15 years ago and how sometimes life is like, this isn't the time for you right now. Hold on to this, put this in your chest pocket. And then all of a sudden I was able to just like go in my pocket and be like, this is it. This is the time to do it now. And I think it's just a life lesson in that, like, you don't need to totally give up on ideas or dreams. Sometimes it's just, you need to cash them in a little bit later.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I love that you made that point.
Yeah.
I'm going to shift gears for a moment just because I'm curious. Like, I have a lot of female entrepreneurs who listen, and I also come from a photography family. And so photography is very near and dear to me in general. And I've always valued professional photography. But I also know that, you talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh, well, I could just do it on my phone or I can, why would you say somebody should consider investing in brand photography if they're a business owner, if they've not done so, or even refresh it if it was like a year or two old? Because I also think that is important as well. And I'd love to hear your perspective.
Sure. Well, to kind of backtrack a little bit, when I first had started my business, I was referred to a few different women in business. And one of my friends said, hey, I know this woman, she's got, a great budding business, but she needs help with her branding, photography, just message. And I saw that she was unbelievably professional, great service, all the things, but she didn't have the time. She didn't have the time or the understanding of what great pictures were, how to put together and curate a really nice website, Instagram. So being able to dive in with her, and then all of a sudden it's a month or so later and she sees the power of branding in photos and offloading that, what feels maybe like a heavy task, to somebody else because you're busy, all of a sudden it just opens up their world to just focusing on their craft. And so for me, I saw a huge opportunity to empower women and also men into, explaining to them, like, you're basically you're opening up time for yourself, because a lot of people, like to your point, think, oh, I should just do it on my phone. I'll save money. But at the same time, the images they're not great, right?
Right.
They don't look professional. So investing in brand photography is so important because for me, I jump in, and you can attest to this. I'm asking all the questions. Who are you? Who's your target market? How long have you been doing it? Why do you do it? Which is super important. What do you want to say to a prospective client? And what are your colors? What's your logo? What's your aesthetic? What do you like to eat? What do you like to drink? I mean, I dive in with like 1,000 questions, and it's important because if I understand who you are, who this person is, then I'm able to create imagery that's very authentic, and then it starts to create this consistency and cohesion across all your platforms. So if I go to your Instagram, I go to your website, I go to all your marketing materials, and it all looks the same. To me, as somebody who's potentially going to hire you, I think, oh my gosh, this woman really has it together, and she's serious about herself and her business. So I think it's really the cohesion and consistency is really important. And, we're eating constantly with our eyes, whether again, it's printed marketing, socials, websites, we're constantly eating with our eyes. So if all these visuals make sense, then we're typically sold. So I think it's such a great investment. And then as far as refreshing, our hair changes, our face changes, our body changes, our style of clothes changes. New England, we have seasons. So a lot of times people are like, oh, well, the cherry blossoms are out. I'd love to do a shoot, on Comm Ave. Fantastic. Let's do it. Or a lot of people say, I'd love to do some sort of seasonal shoot so that I can be more relatable to my clients. So I think it's really important to do updates, and it keeps you fresh. And I think in a digital world, we all have to keep it as fresh as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, attention spans are very short too. And so it's nice to keep changing and, keeping 100%. Up with that, because there's a lot of posts that you may do as well. And if you're constantly using the same thing, it's not going to attract the same attention. But I love what you said even about the cohesiveness across platforms. And then I think, I don't remember exactly what verbiage you used, but that the person who has that cohesiveness and that look, you feel like as a business owner, oh, they really have it together and it's organized. And I know professions are different, but I think in general, definitely for financial services, what I do, but if for even somebody who does permanent makeup, for example, you don't want to use somebody on your face on something permanent who's got a big mess going on anywhere else. I think it really does reflect the tone of your business. And in business, we're delivering as much as the product, you're delivering an experience. And I think you're like the front door to the experience.
Absolutely. And just to sort of piggyback off of that word experience, that's something that is a huge pillar of my business. And maybe you can attest to this, but I'm somebody that worked in the hospitality and event industry for 20 years. So for me, I truly believe in giving an excellent customer experience. And it's something I'm constantly trying to get feedback from my clients. And I'm just always trying to elevate it, because being in front of the camera is, for a lot of people, it's a really intimidating experience. And I always tell my clients, you're brave for just walking in that door. And because a lot of times, especially as women, we're immediately like, oh, well, don't get this side and don't do that and don't get here. Can you slim me down? And it's I really like to create this, safe space for people and women to feel their best. And I inject so much, vibrancy and energy and just hype girl through and through, because the world is hard. Life is hard. And if I can give you 30 minutes to 90 minutes of just pure pump up the jams, let's go, we all need it. And I think it also helps. It comes across in photos, but I truly am I would say being a brand photographer, but also being a hospitality expert is, I would say, I'm giving myself that title too, because I truly believe it's really important.
Well, if you feel good, you'll look good. And I can definitely 100%. Agree, from soup to nuts, from the beginning of the experience, in terms of finding out, like you mentioned in your prior comments, finding out, what you like to eat, drink, colors, tone, feel, branding, all that, to day of fully having your full attention and energy, 100%. That's definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
Because
and you came so prepared. You came so prepared.
I like to be prepared, but I'm a little bit of an over planner, but that's okay. Sometimes to a fault. One thing I'm thinking as you're talking, before we kind of go to my last couple typical questions that I ask people.
Sure.
I think a lot of photography, we just talked a lot about hey, ahead of time, I'm going to ask you this. And in there, we're going to have a lot of energy, and we're going to really capture your feels and who you are and get that image out there. But there's a lot of work that goes in after the session. Can you talk to that a little? Because I think sometimes people see a photography price tag and they're a little whoa, but they're not really aware of all the work that's happening behind the scenes. And I think that's the case with any business, even myself. There's stuff that's going on every day that you don't see. And so I just want to kind of call some of it out so that people realize when you're getting the investment, it's not just your 4 hours or day of photography, but everything in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually starts with the inquiry process. Somebody makes an inquiry and it's, hey, can we set up a time? Would love to chat with you. I find it really important to either chat on the phone or meet in person. If I could meet in person, I prefer that, because I want to know who you are and your energy, and I can pick that stuff up very quickly. So it's a lot of email correspondence, and then it's a lot of the questions. And then it's a lot of planning. I'm mood boarding. I'm creating Pinterest boards. I'm maybe I'm going to scout a location, or I'm, trying to pinpoint what studio would be best for this particular client. Maybe it's creating mood boards of different outfits. Maybe it's a team. So then I'm trying to coordinate, I think, let's do a white scheme and then let's do a black scheme. So it's a lot of pre-production. And I actually always prep my clients and say, I'm going to be not tough, but I'm really persistent with the pre-production because, it's like working in a restaurant. You do all the prep work. So like the day of, you're just cruising. And that's the same with my business, is that I worked in production in New York for a long time. And that was ingrained in me, like do all the work in the beginning. So that day of, we're cruising, we're having a great time on set. And then yes, as soon as the shoot's done, so people see me for an hour. And then after, I'm uploading multiple memory cards. And then from there, if I shot 3,000 pictures, I need to go through all of them. And just make sure, okay, well, these ones are all blinked or blurred, take those out. And then it's called the culling process. And so that's a really pretty tedious process. And then from there, it's, doing maybe a pre-edit and then sending them to my client to do a preview. Then from there, it's doing all the edits. And I don't know that people understand the amount of time my eyeballs are behind a screen. It's an exorbitant amount of hours, and I'm pretty meticulous with my edits. And I want to make sure that people look well rested and that the colors coincide with their branding colors. So it's really a lot of minute little details that I put into it. And I want people to be really happy with their images. So it's a lot of time. And then if there's some back and forth with any sort of edits, or if I need to send it off for, something else, it's a ton of time. So the actual time that you see me on set, that's like 2% of my job.
Yeah.
It's truly, but it's like my favorite 2%.
Yeah. Well, that's super fun. I remember, I mean, it's different. It's still it's super time consuming, and you really have to be committed to it. So I just want to make sure that was called out to my grandmother, who actually would like stand there with a little paintbrush and do like, because she was, she would do like the print and go in there.
It's so much work.
But this was back, years ago before digital photography. But definitely, it's all the after process has always been a very key piece, and you do get what you pay for. So I think it's important to find somebody who's really invested in the whole process.
Right, exactly. And I think that, I've had some colleagues say, oh, you should just send it out to somebody to edit. But for me, I take a lot of pride in the way that I edit. And I think it's kind of like the final bow on the package.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I just take a lot of pride in it. I mean, maybe when I'm some big like mega studio, I can, hire somebody to do it for me. But right now, it's just the Mia show.
That's awesome. Okay, two quick questions. What is your favorite book?
So during the pandemic, one of my really, really good friends sent me Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It is, I've read it multiple times, and I think it was the perfect gift for that particular season of my life, about, just about love and family and boundaries and just breaking out of the cage in your shell. And so it's one of those books that I actually keep by my bed and I just highlight, and it's like it's kind of like a Bible. And I love it. And I love the message. And it's a gift. It's a book that I've gifted probably 15 times. I just think it's great.
That's the best thing about the best books. You end up gifting them. I have a couple 100%. Like that I've gifted, but I love Glennon Doyle. So she's awesome.
And then actually something that I'm rereading that I read probably 6 years ago is Danny Myers, who's a big restaurant guru out of New York City. He has a really great book called Setting the Table. And it's all about, his story of coming to be this great restaurateur. But there's a huge emphasis on hospitality and the client and guest experience. So I find it to be a special reference.
Well, just check that one out. The last thing is, because it is a financial podcast, so I have to throw in something financial. As a business owner, and this is also helpful, it's helpful to me. This is a question that I like the answer to, because it helps me tailor my own service to others, as well as, helps other listeners know they're not alone. What would you say is your biggest struggle with balancing personal and business, your financial life, business? They're competing priorities usually. So usually you're like, oh, well, do I put money here to put in my retirement or save on taxes, or do I go on a vacation? So what's your biggest struggle with that sort of balance?
I mean, all of it. I think what's interesting about the line of work that I'm in is that I don't make typically like a set amount per month. And I think with other businesses like real estate, other businesses that sort of ebb and flow, you have to be mindful about, where you are saving and spending and investing. And I think the current season that I'm in, I have a lot of focus on how do I reinvest in my business and where am I putting money? And so like, I'm making an investment right now back into my business with a studio space part-time and then a big overhaul with equipment. So, and that, maybe I'm not going to do a vacation immediately, but I'm going to take that money and I want to put it into my business because I know that I will be able to recoup all that and it's going to be a great ROI. So it's all really hard, Jennifer. It's all really hard when you're a one-woman show. Honestly, it really is. So I don't think I have like very specific answers, but I think it's just being dialed into where your money's coming in and how it's going out. And I think something that sometimes I struggle with is like, because my business can be really social, there's a lot of things with personal and business that kind of overlap.
Yes.
But I'm actually working with a new bookkeeping and tax team. So hopefully they can direct me a little bit better. So
yeah, that is a real struggle. I mean, I bring it up because I know it's the struggle. And so it's nice to hear more specifically from people, that it's often that prioritization and like, how do you choose and what year? And even just, there's so many things you can spend your money on as a business owner, be it equipment or space or branding photography or staff. And how do you make those choices and weight them? And, and then where I come in often with clients is in the space of, okay, how do I do this and save for these near-term goals as well as those more, okay, in 5 years, this is where I'm at and I want to start saving for that, as well as that long-term. Like maybe I don't want to do this forever. Maybe I want to retire. Maybe I want to buy a beach house in 15 years. And as I start having more money, how do I put aside for that? And how does that balance out with my tax and bookkeeping and all that? So, and that's where I can answer those questions. It's really helpful to hear you kind of throw out those things because I think that is common. And I think it's reassuring to a lot of listeners that, oh, good, I'm not the only one who wrestles with that.
No, I mean, obviously as somebody who's supporting business owners all the time, and a lot of them are solopreneurs like ourselves. And it is, I mean, it's a balance between, okay, well, do I invest in education in myself? And it's a big investment, or do I invest in it for me, like a new camera, or if it's somebody at a med spa, or a new laser machine? There's so many things. Or do I go on this retreat to like work on my mind, body wellness? I mean, there's so many things, and it's like you can't do them all truly at the same time. And it's just figuring out like what season am I in, what prioritizes. It's tough, but I think it's important to have people like you. But then also like for myself, I have a business accountability partner. And, even though we're in different industries, we're able to chat about, I'm struggling with this priority or like how to invest. And I think being able to create community is really important.
I agree. It's a balance, but I appreciate you sharing all that. And it is. The community is key too. Okay, well, I want people to know where to find you because you do such an amazing job at what you do. And I'm sure there are people listening who are like, hey, wait, I need that. So where can people find you?
Sure. So it's at Mia_staygold on the Instagram. And then it's www.staygoldimages.com on the webs. And I'm based in Boston. I travel. Any place warm is always great. Yeah. And, shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot me an email. And I would love to, contact you guys. So let's make some magic happen in 2024.
Awesome. Yeah. If you guys need branding, reach out to Mia. I promise you will absolutely love her work and she will get you. So definitely reach out. Thanks for joining me, Mia. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm just so glad to be connected with you.